Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of To The Point. Hope you're all doing well. Episode 227 here on the podcast, and lots to chat about today. The episode is titled Steamroll because we have a lot of blowouts to discuss in hockey, in a particular pitcher in baseball, at the French Open, a signing in the NHL. Lots of blowouts, I think, and smart decisions across the board, and not so smart decisions. So we'll dive into it all today. But it was a when you know you're going to do a show and you give an opinion and you know you're wrong, you don't want to admit it, but you have to because it's being honest to your audience, it's being honest to yourself, and it's part of in my opinion, getting better as a human being is admitting to your faults, saying sorry. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think it's something that's cathartic. I think it's something that needs to be done. For instance, whenever I've lied to my mother very few times in my life, but whenever I do it, I can't go 10 minutes without telling her or saying that I'm sorry because I hate doing that to her and it gets inside my brain. So yesterday, I said that the Florida Panthers were going to win game two. I just had a hunch. They're going to make adjustments. It's going to get better. And I picked Vegas to win the series, but I thought Florida would win game two. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. Not only did they not win the game, they weren't even close to winning the game. They had no part of the game last night where you thought they were going to win it. Game two of the Stanley Cup Final was over in the second period. It was over in the second period, and anytime Florida got a look at a scoring chance, got a look of could this be competitive, Vegas put it out like water to a fire. Why is that? Why is this series 2-0, and why was last night's game so one-sided? There are many reasons. I mean, a 7-2 game, there's a lot to talk about. And on the surface, you could start by saying Sergei Bobrovsky is not playing at the level he did against the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Carolina Hurricanes. True, but I don't view that as the biggest reason as to why this series or why Vegas dominated Florida last night. Here's the deal. 5-on-5, Vegas is a far superior team. 5-on-5, Vegas' top two lines, Stevenson, Mark Stone, Brett Howden, Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault, have outplayed and outclassed the top two lines of the Florida Panthers. Sasha Barkov, Carter Verhaeghe, Anthony Duclair, Nick Cousins, Sammy B, and Matthew Tkachuk. It's not even close. The greatest scoring opportunities last night were from the bottom two lines, and they hardly outplayed the bottom six of Vegas. Do you remember great quality scoring chances 5-on-5 for the Tkachuk line that wasn't in garbage time? Do you remember a Sasha Barkov shift where he had any impact on the game? I don't. It's one-way traffic. The Vegas top two lines play with better pace, they play with better physicality, and they're sacrificing and working harder. Sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's just who wants it more, and I think Vegas wants it more. I didn't see a whole lot of fight from the Florida Panthers last night. And not with your fist, but fighting for space, fighting for position. It was a simplistic game where Vegas worked for opportunities, they created opportunities, and they capitalized on said opportunities. Case in point, the game is 0-0. Ryan Lomberg, a bottom six forward for the Florida Panthers, is going to the bench. And he throws an unnecessary forearm shiver, and I believe it was Jonathan Marchessault. It was a penalty. It was a penalty. It was stupid. It was unnecessary. Why do it? You thought you'd get an extra shot in. You didn't. What happens on said power play? Marchessault scores, 8 seconds into it? Quickly, it's 1-0, and it went downhill from there. Price is Right. Straight down. Just off the cliff. You know where it's going. It's not going well. Stupid penalty. Then, Brandon Montour takes a stupid penalty. They don't score in the power play, but you gain momentum. Vegas kept it going. They kept it going. And Florida's power play, which stunk up the joint in game one, actually was effective last night. They didn't score on it, but they had their best opportunity of the game in the first period. If you recall, they got a power play. Tkachuk had 2 really good looks in tight. They had a puck bounce off a shin pad, but ultimately it doesn't score. What happens? Vegas goes down the ice. Alek Martinez off a stick, scores a goal, makes it 2-0. But if you look at, to me, the biggest advantage Vegas has, Sam Bennett's a very good player. He's not as good as Jack Eichel. Sasha Barkov, I said this yesterday, he's not as good as Chandler Stevenson. The center ice position is a strength for Vegas, and it's a strength that they own over the Florida Panthers. Chandler Stevenson, through 2 games, has been simply sublime. He's been phenomenal. Jack Eichel, I mean, this guy, I got to give him credit. He gets nailed by Matthew Tkachuk at the end of the second period. Clean hit, by the way. Absolutely a clean hit. They had to, they go to review this shit. My God, they want to lose audience. I think the NHL wants people just to tune out. The game's a blowout, and you say, oh, it's a Monday night. The game starts at 9:18 when it says it's going to start at 9 o'clock. Let's go review this for 10 minutes. Smart decision. Fucking idiots. But they review a clean hit, which, oh, great. Eichel gets level. And he leaves the game, but he comes back. Jack Eichel. The man who's known for being soft. Oh, he's this, he's that. He is not that in this series. He is playing like a man possessed. He's playing like a guy that really wants to win a Stanley Cup, and he'll do whatever it takes to win it. He took big hits in the series. He's being targeted. It doesn't faze him. He got a point in the third period. But his line and the Stevenson line are dominating. Eichel playing against Barkov, it's man against boys. And I'll tell you, I said before the series, I thought it would be smart to throw a little bit of scratch on Jonathan Marchessault to win the Conn Smythe, which I did, by the way. He was paying at plus 400. I think if the series continues, he's going to win it. He leads their team in goals now. He's the straw that stirs the drink. He used to be a Florida Panther, so you have the narrative game. It's hard to argue he hasn't been their most important forward. He's been in Vegas since the jump. A lot of key points there that would say, well, it's not a bad choice for a Conn Smythe winner. He's playing great. He really is. He's got a great shot. He's got the pulse of the team. And I love the way he's playing. I mentioned this yesterday, that I thought Florida would be better at spacing and limiting wide open opportunities for Vegas. They did and they didn't. On the power play, no, they did not, because I thought Vegas could do whatever the hell they wanted. But if you look at some of the goals last night, just if we think about the game as a whole, and we think about each goal, Marceau in the power play. Martinez, that wasn't a goal through spacing. You either get your stick out of the way or you block it. You know, the Don Cherry theory. Nick Roy, he's going the puck to the net. You could argue Bobrovsky should have stopped that one. Brett Howden's transition. Marchessault's second goal, transition goal. Amadio, same thing. Brett Howden on the power play. So less about spacing, because I think defense did a better job. There was less odd man rushes. There was less opportunity, just going right down Main Street for scoring opportunities. But I mentioned transition there. I mentioned 4 of the 7 goals were in transition. Vegas are like Gallup. They are like Secretariat at the Kentucky Derby. They take the puck off the boards, break out, break out, break out. We are going to attack you. That goal by Brett Howden, that tic-tac-toe play that started with a breakout, that was the 4th goal of the game, if you recall, when Bobrovsky was pulled. That was a thing of beauty. That was a thing of beauty, and not many teams, Bobrovsky, he's not stopping that. It's too good a passing. It's too smart a play. But for Florida, the key thing now, because we saw it in Game 6 against Dallas when the 4th line ran wild, you need to stop allowing easy breakouts. You need to stop the Vegas Golden Knights from getting that speed. You need to limit what they can do. Because right now, it's just too easy. It's too easy for them. The defensemen have to be more engaged. Wingers have to be set. Because in the neutral zone and breaking out, Vegas can do whatever the hell they want. And if they continue to do whatever the hell they want, guess what? They're going to win the series. And it might not go that long. Because Vegas is the better team. And if you're allowing them to do what they want offensively, good luck. And not to mention, it's tough because Florida's banged up, which Vegas is as well. But early in the game, I'm thinking maybe Florida's got a chance because Radko Gudas, who's hurt, they had to dress 7 defensemen last night. Radko Gudas' first 3 shifts were awesome. His first shift of the game, he threw the hit on William Carrier, if I remember, by the blue line, which led to a scoring chance. But, of course, my guy, Nick Hague, blocked the shot on the Sam Reinhart shot. But he created that. Second shift, Chandler Stevenson. Pass from Mark Stone. He is bearing in on the goaltender. He's going to get a look on his forehand. Gudas recovers, gets back to Stevenson, whacks the puck away, puts it into the corner. They clear the puck out of the zone. 2 for 2. And then his third shift of the game, he is absolutely leveled by Ivan Barbashev. Leveled. Another clean hit. And really, it hurt them. It hurt them not to have him available. To have these type of moments. A good play that led to offense, and then a really good defensive play because that's his MO. But if you don't have him, and you have to play Montour that many minutes, and Ekblad that many minutes, and Forsling has to overcompensate, it's tough as well. Because Fitzgerald has to come in, and he's not ready to play in these big moments. To me, that Gudas injury is paramount because he was having such an effect on the game early. And Barbashev said, I'm going to hit you. And I'm going to hit you hard. Which, oh, by the way, I remember at the trade deadline season, I said Ivan Barbashev was going to be a great add for a team. Ivan Barbashev would be a perfect fit. I thought he'd work in Edmonton, Toronto, even Carolina. Vegas scooped him up for a mere 3rd round pick. Has there been a better ad? Has there been a guy that's had more of an effect on a team? You trade a guy who's bottom 6 in St. Louis, he's playing top 6 in Vegas. He fits perfect with Marchessault and Jack Eichel. And what I don't get from these teams, did you watch him in 2019? Did you watch him on St. Louis where he was a fourth liner, yet he completely bludgeoned the opposing teams? He had everything that moved. He made life difficult on the defenseman. He knocked Torrey Krug out of the series, his future teammate. He might have knocked Radko Gudas out of this series, back-to-back Stanley Cup finals for him, where he could knock out guys out of series. But he's not just doing it with hitting now. He's more confident offensively. I think he has more freedom to do these type of things. Looking at his playoff statistics. In 2019-2020, he had... 2018-2019. He had played 25 playoff games. He had 6 points. But you know what? Those were valuable. And he only took 4 penalty minutes in that span, which is pretty crazy. In 19 playoff games this year, he has 17 points. 6 goals, 11 assists. He is having a huge impact on this team. He's a free agent this summer. And I'll tell you, the 2 guys I just talked about, Radko Gudas is up there in age. He can still play. And teams should look at him. Because he still brings something to the table. And he's played all postseason long. And he hasn't been that big of he hasn't been a hindrance. In Ivan Barbashev, enough of this. I don't get. He's making money every time he steps on the ice. He's 27. And he's playing like a top 6 forward. And he's dominating in the playoffs, which is when you want somebody to dominate. These top 50, top 100 lists, whatever the hell you want that you can make, and you put all your favorite players on it that you know won't be in the playoffs or will be out in the first round. I can think of a few of those guys. Barbashev he's a valuable piece to a team that's winning. St. Louis was winning. Vegas looks like they're going to win the Stanley Cup. He is awesome to that team. But to me, Kelly McCrimmon, George McPhee, hell of a deadline ad. Hell of a deadline ad because you didn't give up many assets and you got such an important player to your team. You had a great back end. You had some really good pieces up front, but can you add something else to the table? To think about this, you could put it as simple as this. They swapped Phil Kessel for Ivan Barbashev. Now you could say, well, Barbashev wasn't the one inserted into the lineup for Kessel when he's a healthy scratch. That's the trade-off, because Kolasar was on the roster. Carrier was on the roster. Amadi was on the roster prior to the deadline. Guess what? Kessel was playing. So that's the type of move. You remove an older player that isn't effective anymore, and you add a guy who's 27 in the prime of his career and is playoff ready, and that's when he plays his best hockey. And I'm not praising a guy that's got 4 points. I'm praising a guy who's almost a point per game in the fucking playoffs. Playoffs. I just think this is a lesson to teams that I didn't understand how he went to Vegas for a 3rd-round pick. I said, this got to be a typo. This has to be a mistake. Ivan Barbashev, the guy who helped St. Louis win the Stanley Cup and is liked around the league, he's the guy that's going for a 3rd rounder. He's the guy that is getting nothing. Good for Vegas. Good for Kelly McCrimmon. I doubt they can re-sign him because I think he's going to be far too valuable on the open market. Just thinking off the top of my mind, Kyle Dubas didn't trade for him. Pittsburgh should look at him. I wouldn't want to go there if I'm Barbashev. He's not going to win a championship. But I think Sidney Crosby would want him. After watching him in these playoffs, I think they'd fit well together, quite frankly. Pittsburgh's got $20 million in cap space. I'd look at Ivan Barbashev. You get him in a 4-year deal, 27 years old, get him in his prime years. Not a bad signing. I think a lot of teams will be looking at him, but again, good on Vegas for noticing what I did, and these other teams around the league just didn't. We saw some line juggling from Paul Maurice in the third period. I think I would continue to do that in game three. I'm going to talk about lines later in the week because we got 2 days off between games that I would go with. Just combinations, thinking about what would be best against, and you have home ice advantage. You might want to try to line to try to manage a little bit, try to, mix and match and get some defensive matchups that you like better than you have it in the first 2 games in Vegas. But I look at Florida. Their keys moving forward, number one is obvious, goaltending. Paul Maurice did not say who would start game 3. It's going to be Sergei Bobrovsky, as it should be. If anybody's going to catch lightning in a bottle and play fantastic hockey and Florida gets back in this series, it's going to be Sergei. He was yanked after 4 goals last night. He hasn't been all that good in the first 2 games of this series, but I'm going back with him for game 3 on Thursday night. 8 goals against already in the series, but I don't care. I want him in my net. He's got me this far. He's been the team's best player minus Matthew Tkachuk. So that's key number 1, goaltending. 2, break up the neutral zone, limit the speed. Don't allow Vegas to just do whatever the hell they want. Make life more difficult. Not so easy, seamless transitions. Because Vegas when they get speed, they are tough to deal with. They are very tough to deal with. And quite frankly, Florida can't deal with it. Because their forward group isn't as fast as Vegas's. And when you have all that, when you have the neutral zone with all that speed, you got to catch up. And when you're not as fast, you're not going to. And number 3, pick your spots better. What I mean by that is you want to throw a late shot, you want to get into a scrum, pick your spots. Don't attack Aiden Hill. That's stupid. You're going to get the extra penalty. Don't throw a late cross check when you're going to the box. How about throw some hits? How about have the Ivan Barbashev approach? Or the William Carrier approach, who's a little fire hydrant out there. Do it through physicality, and maybe Vegas will take some penalties on you. But this ticky-tack, petty stuff, like the Montour penalty and the Longberg penalty last night, they're calls. And they're more stupidity calls because you're trying to, what you're doing is wrong, but you think you can get away with it. Through 2 games, the officials have said you're not going to. You're not going to get away with this, so cut the shit. Be physical in front. You can have a scrum. I have no problem with a scrum, but just have a little more hockey IQ about it. Don't hold a guy and then go sucker him in the face. That's, again, wrong approach. But how about go after Nick Hague, who's the big defenseman, who's the mutant out there? How about target out? We know Alex Pietrangelo has a bad temper. We know he will lose it every now and then. How about go hit him? Piss him off. Make him take a penalty. Maybe he'll slash you, something good happens. That's the approach I would take. Because quite frankly, it's too much of just ticky-tack, petty, stupid stuff that's never going to benefit you. You need to be focused on the Vegas Golden Knights, and I think their focus has been too much elsewhere. Quite frankly, you're playing a team that's better than you. And when you're playing a team that's better than you, you need to be fundamentally better than them. You need to be aware of your faults. You need to play a near perfect game. and get some bodies in front of that net, Aiden Hill's seeing the pucks. And that's also a problem. But as I said, I'm sure Marchessault's I'm going to look at the odds current right now for the Conn Smythe. Because I know he was, I think, 5th before the series started. Just look here. As I go on old FanDuel Sportsbook. Because I know Bobrovsky was number 1. He was the heavy favorite. And it makes things more interesting when there's... So, let's see. Conn Smythe, Jonathan Marchessault is the favorite. Yeah, he's a minus 105 currently, followed by Aiden Hill plus 400, Jack Eichel plus 600, Mark Stone plus 1,000. Bobrovsky is all the way down at plus 1,300 with Matthew Tkachuk. So the first 4 are Vegas Golden Knights, which makes sense. I think Chandler Stevenson deserves some love up there, but again, I'm cool. Aiden Hill's been good in the series, but I can't give it to Aiden Hill. He started playing in the third at the end of the second round. I think that's not enough for me. I want to see the full shooting match. Right now, I'm also seeing this FanDuel Sportsbook to make Leaf fans happy. They have the second best odds to win the Stanley Cup next year. Plus 1,100. You can get that now. FanDuel. Colorado plus 800. They have the best odds. So that might make you feel better. Vegas is currently has the 6th best odds in the Stanley Cup final. So just some news and notes there for everybody involved. But yeah, Marchessault is the easy choice because he didn't score a goal in the playoffs until Game 3 of the second round. He scored 13 since. He's scored 13 since, and he's been the rock of that. And I respect, what he represents to that team. 3 points last night. Had a goal in Game 1. Had a goal in closeout Game 6. You look at him, he only had 57 points in the regular season. But this is when he comes to play. This is when he truly comes out and shows himself. He was a guy Florida gave up on, and Vegas scooped him up in the expansion draft for nothing. Riley Smith and him are in Vegas because Florida said enough. And wouldn't it be fitting if he ends up in Vegas and he beats Florida for the Stanley Cup? To wait and see. Game 3 is Thursday night in Sunrise, Florida. As I mentioned yesterday, NBA Finals Game 3 Wednesday, Game 3 Stanley Cup Thursday, Game 4 Stanley Cup Friday, Game 4 NBA Finals Friday, Game 4 Stanley Cup on Saturday. So we'll have 4 straight days of it. Tonight's an off night for the NBA and the NHL. Couple other things in the NHL yesterday. Montreal Canadiens made a big signing, an extension. They signed Cole Caufield to an 8-year, $62.8 million extension, which is $7.85 million per season. Cole Caufield only played 46 games last season, but he had 26 goals in that time frame. He's 23. 2 things on this deal. 8 years is a win. 8 years is a win. The salary cap will go up, and they have Suzuki for 8 years. They have Caufield for 8 years. I think both of those are wins. Now, as we stand, is Cole Caufield an $8 million player? No, he isn't. Cole Caufield's a scorer. He has a great shot. He has a nose for finding the back of the net. Absolutely. But Cole Caufield is a guy that is still proving himself at the NHL level. It wasn't that long ago, you recall, he was sent down to play in Laval because he couldn't crack it. His last 2 seasons, 2021-2022, played 67 games. He had 43 points, but 23 goals. Last year, played 46, had 3 more goals in 19 less games with 36 points. So we're seeing a progression. He's going to be a great goal scorer. We know that. The thing with Cole Caufield is he's very one-dimensional. He's never going to be a good defensive player. He's never going to be a guy that is, I think, a great team player when it comes to winning. I don't mind the deal. The biggest thing Montreal has to do is Suzuki and Caufield have to have a connection, or both deals are meaningless. Because Caufield and Suzuki are their 2 most important players. Because the Montreal Canadiens are going through a retool, rebuild, however you want to frame it. They have Samuel Montembeault, who was really good last year, who they did not expect to be very good. I think he's more of a 2, so you're looking for a starting goalie. Carey Price isn't coming back, so you need to search for that. Your back end still needs a lot of help. You need some guys to push through. You got to hope that Justin Barron can be an NHL defenseman. Do they pull off a Pierre-Luc Dubois trade this summer to add to their center depth? Wouldn't be a bad idea. But again, I think if you look at the Montreal Canadiens roster, it has a lot of holes. It's not winning anytime soon. So that's why signing Caufield to this long-term deal is a win. Because their roster isn't good. Let's be honest here. It's average at best. Kirby Dach has been okay as an NHL player. Arbor Zerback, can he be a regular NHLer? Drouin's gone. Josh Anderson's still under contract. Slavkovsky, who they drafted first overall, I still have high hopes for the kid. Missed most of last year. I hope he can bounce back because I think he's got a wicked shot. He needs to figure out his body. But he's got it. Brendan Gallagher, I've said this from jump. If you can get that contract off your books this summer, that'll be the best GM job you can hope for. Mike Matheson had a great season in the Petrie trade. Barron, Mike Hoffman, Kovacek's a young player. Edmondson's got a year left in his deal. They still have Jake Allen. Jordan Harris, young guy. Caden Gooley, I have a lot of hope for. Savard. So, Armia, Dvorak. I think they have players that are in elevated positions. And quite frankly, they have players that I wouldn't want because you're not going to win. Christian Dvorak was a stupid trade. I said that from the second it happened. And I think I've been proven right ever since. Their defense is extremely young and it's a little small. It's a little lean on that back end. You'd want to add some size to it, certainly. And I don't know if Caden Gooley's going to be a number 1 defenseman in this league. It's tough to find number 1 defenseman. I get that. Will he be that guy? I'm not so sure. But if Caufield is either going to play with Suzuki or if you can pull a trade for Dubois, he's going to play with Pierre-Luc Dubois. And he needs to have a connection with one of them because he's a score-first player. Can he pass the puck? Absolutely. But his goal is going to be the power play anchor for the Montreal Canadiens, to be the guy that leads them in power play goals for the next 8 years, to be the guy that leads them in goal scoring for the next 8 to 10 years. And I like the player, but again, he has his deficiencies. And it would help to put him with a player like Suzuki, because Suzuki's a 2-way center. He has a great hockey IQ, and he doesn't cheat offensively. He's got a lot of Jonathan Toews, Sidney Crosby in his game. where he's just as focused on being efficient defensively, being in the right spot, doing the right things than he is, scoring 25 goals and having that kind of accolades thrown on top of him. So I like the signing. Out of 10, I'll give it a 7. I'll give it a 7 because pro, 8 years, $7.85 million when the cap continues to go up will not be a lot of money. Will not be a lot of money. Do I think Cole Caufield could be as good as William Nylander? Yeah, I do. I do because William Nylander scored 40 goals. I think Cole Caufield has that potential. Here are the cons. 1, injury. He's missed time in every NHL season. He missed half the year last year. You could say, well, we shut him down. He missed time. And when you're hurt, you're not playing, you can't help the team. And in particular, when you're on a team that isn't any good, it really hurts the team. Really hurts the team. Some of last year, they had an AHL roster, and somehow they were winning games. So that's a con. And I just think his overall play is very much me and not about the team and about finding ways to win. So that would be the other con for me. But I like Cole Caufield. I think he's a good player. It's just about building a good enough roster around the Montreal Canadiens, building a better defense, finding a number 1 goalie, so that Cole Caufield is a piece of the pie and not the whole thing. Because I think if Suzuki and Cole Caufield are the centerpieces of the proverbial pie in Montreal, I don't think they're going to win anything. They're 2 good players that I like. But are they game changers? No. Is Suzuki as good as Jonathan Toews currently? Is Suzuki better than Jonathan Toews was in his prime? No. Is Cole Caufield as good as Patrick Kane? No. So you have to put pieces around them that can help. And I think if a Pierre-Luc Dubois trade could happen, you do it because I think that helps your team. And also if I'm Montreal, this would be a tough play. But I would explore a Connor Hellebuyck trade this summer. Connor Hellebuyck has 1 year left on his deal with the Winnipeg Jets. They basically said anything is available this summer. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Scheifele, Hellebuyck. I think teams are going to call on Connor Hellebuyck because goaltending is at a premium. If you can get a guy that's Vezina, possible winner, a guy that you feel could win you a Stanley Cup, this Adin Hill looking at Adin Hill winning Stanley Cup, I don't think that's going to deter teams from looking at great goaltenders saying, I'd like him. Because I'd rather have somebody I really trust than being, we really hope Adin Hill can develop here and he can turn into a star. I don't like banking on ifs. I like being more secure, and I think managements are like, well, we've seen Connor Hellebuyck win a goddamn Vezina. So we'll go on that data and not the we hope so data. But good on Montreal for locking up Cole Caufield. The Anaheim Ducks also made some news yesterday. They named Greg Cronin their new head coach. And under the radar, I didn't even have him. If there was a second radar, I didn't have this guy on it. I know very little about him before yesterday, and I read up on him. He was an assistant for 12 years in the league. He was the head coach of the Colorado Eagles for the past 5. He's 60 years old, first-time head coach, so he's paid his dues for sure. Coached in the OHL, he's coached as an assistant coach in the American League, and he gets an opportunity in Anaheim. Here's my worry with Anaheim. Maybe Greg Cronin's a great coach. We don't know. I haven't seen him coach in the NHL. But I can worry. You go from Dallas Eakins to Greg Cronin. Two really AHL coaches, if you think about it. Where's this team going? With Pat Verbeek as GM and now Greg Cronin, what is the goal of this team? They're in a rebuild, but are they in a retool, a rebuild? They're not any good. They're going to get the second pick in the draft, likely Adam Fantilli. You add another centerman. But where are the Anaheim Ducks going? If they had to give a mission statement, where are they? Because I still believe they're in draft and develop territory. But I worry about some of these players. Do we know what they are? For instance, Trevor Zegras. Trevor Zegras is only 22, but seems like he's older than that because he's been in the league a while. He's played parts of 3 seasons in the National Hockey League. And he had 65 points last season, which is a good season. Don't get me wrong, but nobody would have thought about it. And he had 61 the year before. So he's improving year over year. 23 goals in both seasons. So you know what he is. Mason McTavish. He still has growth. He still has room to work. Troy Terry is what he is. Troy Terry is 25. You could argue he'll be 26 at the start of next season. You could argue he's their best player currently. But he went from 37 goals to 23 last year. And his points dropped as well. So my only worry about this team is you have John Gibson, who's formerly a great goalie. Okay? Are you going to trade him? Is he going to stay for another year? Is his confidence completely shot that he has to be moved? And I'm reading here, John Gibson hoping for trade from Ducks. Yeah, I don't blame him. He'll be 30 in July. Been in Anaheim a long time. It's been a lot of bad years. He's from Pittsburgh. Does he want to go play for Pittsburgh? They don't have a number 1 goalie. Would Anaheim do that? I don't think they want to take on a whole lot of bad contracts. Frank Vatrano. Was that signing smart? Probably not, right? I would argue no. Had a good run with the Rangers in the postseason. He had 41 points last year. He had 1 less goal than Troy Terry, which, good for him. Ryan Strome he had for 5 years. Henrique's coming off the books. Fowler. They have Brock McGinn in the American League. Max Comtois is disappointing because I like Comtois a lot. Unfortunately, his career's kind of hit the ditch. He's only they got a young team. They got a young team in Anaheim. Comtois had 9 goals last season. 19 points. 6 the year before. So do we know what he is? I just look at Anaheim and it's one thing to say we have a lot of prospects. We have a lot of guys, we have a lot of young players who we hope to develop. But here's the thing with that thinking. They're not all going to. Max Comtois was a 2nd-round pick. Maybe he won't be a great NHLer. Maybe he'll be a 3rd or 4th line guy that you have in your team. Trevor Zegras, he will never be the best player on a championship-winning team. If I'm wrong, I'll come back and admit that I'm wrong. I just don't see that happening. Jamie Drysdale, I haven't seen enough of him. I need to see him play more hockey. He missed most of all last year. Tough break because I think he might be the best of the prospects. Mason McTavish, I like a lot. I do. But what is he as an NHL player? I don't think we really know yet. And he was in a tough circumstance because he was on a terrible team last year. A terrible team. and he had to fight through it. In 80 games, he had 43 points. Not great, not horrible, just okay. Didn't get to 20 goals. You bring in another coach that's an American League coach. It seems like a coach that's a Band-Aid before you hire a guy that you want to win. But this team has been losing for a long time. I think, if I'm just going to guess off the top of my head right now, and I'll be wrong with the guess. I think the last time the Anaheim Ducks made the playoffs was it 2016? Might have been 2015. I'm going to look that up quickly for you guys. It's in 2017. The last appearance in the playoffs was in 2017, 2018 when they finished with 101 points in the regular season, but were swept in the first round by the Sharks. Oh, right, I remember that series. The Sharks got to the Stanley Cup final that year. So 2018, 2019, 2020, 6 years. 6 years since they got to the playoffs. That's a problem. You know why? Because Anaheim's a small market, and you need to keep people happy to keep coming to the rink. They have no reason to right now. They're an embarrassing team. Fantilli, I like him. I think he's going to be a great player. And you can frame anything to make it look good. Because if we go, we got McTavish up. We got McTavish at center. We're going to have Fantilli. We got Ryan Strome as our third line center. We got Jamie Drysdale, Cam Fowler on the back end. Shattenkirk still got something left. Maybe might trade John Gibson. We don't have a goalie. But, you can frame it to make it look good. But how good are these players going to be? And what I think is difficult is not having good enough veterans around young pieces. Having guys that are set up. When Getzlaf and Perry came in the league, they had veterans on that team. Beauchemin was a vet. They had Brad May, who's the veteran of veterans, who was ready to welcome them in. They had Scotty Niedermayer. Could you ask for a better person to welcome onto a team? To bridge you? J.S. Shiger, Chris Pronger. So you have good pieces around you, and I think Getzlaf and Perry earlier in their career are better than any of these players I just named. So the Anaheim Ducks are a team of hope, a team of faith. And faith is good if you're religious or if you're, you're a person that believes and you hope something's going to happen. I'm not that type of person. I like to have things that I know are set in stone. I like to look at it and say, this team will work because of this. This team will have success because of A, B, and C. These players work with these players because their styles mesh. What do we know about Trevor Zegras? He likes to have the puck. He likes to do the Michigan, and he's terrible defensively. Okay. Mason McTavish, skilled up front. Not the best defensive player. I think he could work it more into his game and needs to find more confidence up front. Okay. Every player has things they can work on. Sidney Crosby came in the league. He had Mario Lemieux for a year. And I think that year really helped him. I think it really helped him to have a guy sitting there with him that you could look at and appreciate. I don't look at the Anaheim Ducks as having that. They don't have anybody to wrap them up, to have somebody to make them feel better. They don't have memory foam. In that bed that they have in Anaheim, it's lumpy. It's not very fun to go to bed at night because it's just not comfortable. And I worry about that franchise and I worry about these young players because if you just hope for that, you hope for these guys to continue to develop, I don't know if that's going to work. And adding guys like Ryan Strome and Frankie Vetrano, that isn't doing it for me. Now, I do think trading John Gibson is the right call for him and for the Ducks. He's been there too long. His confidence is shot. He needs to change the scenery. He's had so many bad defensive players in front of him for the last 6 years, it's make his mom cry. And at 30 years old, he will still have value. Because really, the most interesting thing every offseason is the goaltending. They work together. But we'll see. And I'm a little shook right now because we got some breaking news. The PGA Tour has agreed to merge with Saudi-backed rival Live Golf. The PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and the public investment fund behind Live Golf will all merge commercial operations under common ownership moving forward. After 2 years of disruption and distraction, this is a historic day for the game we all know and love, said PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan. This transformational partnership recognizes the immeasurable strength of the PGA Tour's history, legacy, and pro-competitive model, and combines it with the DP World Tour and Live, including the team golf concept, to create an organization that will benefit golf's players, commercial, and charitable partners and fans. Going forward, fans can be confident we will collectively deliver on the promise we've always made to promote competition of the best in professional golf, and we're committed to securing and driving the game's future. So it sounds, and there's nothing in that statement that, to me, that makes it sound as if Live players will be playing with PGA Tours again. Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. At least I see that on Bleacher Report. Interesting to say the least. This is a right hook for me. I did not see this coming. I'm sure this will be more discussed. Jay Monahan, I know, the PGA Tour commissioner, is in Toronto. He's at the Canadian Open, RBC Canadian Open this week. And if this results in what I want the best golfers to play. I want Cam Smith and Brooks Koepka to be playing in these events. Of course, I want the best golfers in the world playing against each other like at the majors. If you can get that at the Memorial, if you can get that at, the RBC, wherever, I'm down. But merging, I'm not sure. There's a lot of ways this can go. Maybe PGA Tour players will play in some of the 3-round Live hokey dokey events. I'm not quite sure. That statement was very much PR, but could you get into the details of what's happening maybe? So I'm scrolling Twitter here. Phil Mickelson tweeted out, "Awesome day today." Smiley face. So PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and announced landmark agreement to unify men's professional golf. Agreement establishes common goal to promote. This is the same. Okay, here we go. Further, the three organizations will work cooperatively and in good faith to establish a fair and objective process for any players who desire to reapply for membership with the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour following the completion of the 2023 season, and for determining fair criteria in terms of readmission consistent with each tour's policy. That's what I wanted to know. So after this season, Brooks Koepka, in a hypothetical world, could come back to the PGA Tour and play in events. Or Phil Mickelson. Or, Cam Smith. Which is awesome. That's all you want as a consumer. You want the best available. You want to have everything together. Recently I had to go into a store called HomeSense. with my mother, and I hate that store. I'm not doing any ads with them. I hate them. It's a stupid store. Ugh, I never want to own a home because you have to buy all that crap. Anyway, I went in there, and the only thing good I can say about it is that it's all the ugly crap you need for a home. They had it. So I didn't have to go to two stores. That's the only positive thing I can say. When you go and watch anything, when you want to purchase anything, you want it all in one place. So you can enjoy it all. No person is going to go watch the PGA Tour and then go watch Live. They're not doing both. They're watching one or the other. You're watching the Memorial because it's better than watching the music Live Golf 3 rounds. But the fact that they're merging is what we had before, which was great. And it's great for the players too because they fought to get more money. The purses are huge for these events. Victor Hovland just made $3.6 million last week at the Memorial. I believe it was a little over $2 million in 2021 to think about it, an elevated event. But if I'm thinking strategically, if I'm the PGA Tour, I want players back, and of course you want the best players in your events. But if you could pay, the Memorial presented by Workday, and you could pay the Players Championship, and some of your bigger sponsors, RBC has 2 events every year on the PGA Tour, the RBC Canadian Open and then the RBC Heritage. If you can get some of your biggest sponsors, your biggest tournaments that you have elevated already, and you bring in big names for those events, that might be the play. That might be the play where you see Brooks Koepka play at the Players, play at the Memorial, play at Hilton Head, and maybe he doesn't play the John Deere, he doesn't do these certain events, but it adds to the lore of it because you have Brooks Koepka at this event, you have Phil Mickelson, you have Cam Smith with Rory McIlroy, with Victor Hovland, with Scotty Scheffler, with Jon Rahm. To me, that's what. And then if you have lesser events, you can put some of the names from the Live Golf that have some value. Ian Poulter, who's popular online, Mark Leishman. It just adds to your field a little bit. It adds to your field when you have these lower tier events, and it makes it even more special. So, this is a huge day for golf to have these tours come together, to have some common ground, to have all the best players in the world likely participating in the same events in 2024. So this is good news. And they say this is coming together to grow golf globally. I don't think so. That's not what this is doing. It's putting the best players together. Is what it's doing, which is the purpose. But it took 2 years, but we're here. Live and the PGA have merged. Jay Monahan gets to have some of his old players come back to his tour. Have some bigger names added to the fields. That's all you can ask for. We'll see where this goes from here. But a massive day in the sport of professional golf. That's for sure. And any new news this week, I'll update you throughout the week because this just, like I said, came out right now. Major League Baseball. Prior to the Stanley Cup final last night, I tuned into the Blue Jays game, watch a little bit of that before the game starts, and I didn't have to watch I didn't have to watch most of it because it was 6-0 in 1/3 of an inning, and the game was over. Houston Astros are in town, and they completely destroy Alek Manoah. Alek Manoah now has a 6.36 ERA on the season. He has had his last start, he went 4 innings. He went a third of an inning last night. And he's become the starter that when he hits the mound, the bullpen knows they have to have to be ready and have to pitch for most of the night. The Blue Jays play 7 days in a row. They have a 4-game series with the Astros, then play the Twins for 3. Their bullpen is taxed already, and it's a tough way to begin a series. The Blue Jays have to do something that I don't think they want to do, and it's something they could have did about 2 weeks ago. But after watching last night's performance, it's set in stone. This has to happen. Alek Manoah needs a trip to Buffalo. He needs a trip down to AAA because he is not pitching well in the big leagues. He looks like a guy that has lost all confidence. He can't locate the zone. And, Buck Martinez mentioned this on the broadcast. His speed on his fastball is down. He's throwing 92 and his fastball was throwing 97 last year. His mechanics are wrong. His confidence is down. And eventually you need to do it for the team because this Blue Jays team is hoping they can win a World Series. It's hoping they can be in the conversation, make the playoffs, expanded playoffs, get in the mix and win the World Series this year. That's their goal. And with Alek Manoah, the team's ace, pitching like the 5th, 6th starter, you're not going to. Kevin Gausman's been a godsend to this team this season. Because every time you need a good start from him, he gives you one. He gives you 6-7 innings. Chris Bassett, the Bassett Hound, has done his job very well. He's in every start. He pitches well. He's available. He's been as good or better than I think they hoped. But Alek Manoah, you can't continue to do this. They use Jay Jackson, who will likely be sent down because Bassett needs to come off the paternity list because he had a child and he'll have to start on Wednesday. So Jay Jackson will likely be going down to AAA Buffalo. But the Blue Jays let's look at the relievers last night in the first game in 7 days. They used 6 relievers. Richards, Bass, Garcia, Simber, Meza. You start taxing that bullpen early. Start to get them tired. They didn't use Swanson or Romano, so their 8-9 situation is okay. But you lose the game 11-4. Your ace pitcher is a complete disaster. It's not a good night for the Blue Jays. And I saw this morning, their options in AAA are not good. Mitch White is a 10.80 ERA. Casey Lawrence is a 6.36 ERA. Thomas Hatch is a 4.08. To me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you recall because Manoah needs fixed. And you can look at it and say, we might throw a start away. We might lose. Alek Manoah is slated to start on Saturday, I believe. Yeah, against the Twins. Call up Thomas Hatch. Okay, you lose that game. But you're losing starts with Manoah now. What's the difference? And you need Manoah to be right for you to have a chance to win. To be in the mix to win the World Series, you need to play better. So to me, it's not a difficult choice. You lose a game here or there, you need your team to be... The Toronto Blue Jays are 9.5 back at the Tampa Bay Rays. 9.5 back, and yes, they're 5 games above 500. You can look at that, it's a good thing. But you are 10 games back, in the win column behind Tampa Bay. Currently, they're 4th in the wild card. So they would make the playoffs. Goes Baltimore, Houston, and then it's the Yankees. They're three back of the Yankees. The Angels are only 2 back of the Blue Jays. But this is about the long-term plans of this team. You need the team to turn it around. To think about the season, Kevin Kiermaier is still hitting 300. It's in June. It's pretty impressive. Whit Merrifield's batting 300. Varsho is starting to turn it around. He's finding his power. Vladdy has been disappointing, I would argue. Bichette's been as good as he can be at the plate. So you've had pauses, but it's June 6th and it is a complete disaster. He might not want to go down. You might not want to send him down because everybody likes Alek Manoah. But sometimes you got to make hard decisions and you got to look at him and go, we need you. And we can't have you like this. We can't have you pitching like this because we're not going to win anything. And for John Schneider and for the GM, for Shapiro and for Ross Atkins, they're in the business of winning now. It's not about growth. It's not about getting better. It's absolutely about winning. And I would argue, we still got a long season here. But if the Blue Jays were to miss the playoffs, I'm not sure Ross Atkins is coming back as general manager. Because he's been here a long time. And if you don't have any success, you get fired. That's what happens in pro sports. They haven't won a playoff series since they got here. They've lost in the wild card round twice to Tampa Bay and to Seattle last year. And I think if you look at it and you look at Major League Baseball, if I was to say at the beginning of the year, the Texas Rangers are better than the Toronto Blue Jays, I think you would have said that I'm crazy. They're 19 games above 500. The Texas Rangers. It's crazy. Baltimore is better currently than the Toronto Blue Jays. Yankees. The Miami Marlins have the same record. Pittsburgh Pirates, same record. So if you just look at it that way, it's a tough proposition. But it doesn't matter if it's Casey Lawrence, if it's Mitch White, if it's Thomas Hatch. You can throw the game away if that's how you have to look at it. Because if you don't have Alek Manoah pitching at a high level, you're not going to win. Jose Barrios last year was an unplayable player. In the playoffs, he was not going to start a wild card game, and they just couldn't put him on the mound. And it became a distraction, and it became a problem because you had to work your way around his starts. And it never flipped. Maybe it won't for Alek Manoah. Maybe he'll go to AAA, he'll come back and still be a disaster. But I think you have to try. I think you have to try something because he was a Cy Young level pitcher last season. And sometimes adjustments can be made. Maybe the second half of your season can be a Cy Young level. And if you can turn that around and you have Kevin Gausman pitching the way he has all year, Bassett who's been solid, Barrios who's been okay. Again, you look at those four pitchers and you say, why aren't we better? Why aren't we at the top of the American League East? Other than that, the Rays are just zombies and they win every game with a team that's inferior to the Blue Jays. Hitting, pitching, fielding, whatever you want. Inferior, but they still find ways to win. You move on from last night's game, you look at the Astros for 3 more. I think they can have a good series. Gausman, Bassett, Barrios. Those 3 guys can get going. This conversation is about looking at Saturday. Manoah's next start. It can't be him. Saturday afternoon, it's Thomas Hatch. Simple as that. He gets called up. Manoah's down in AAA. He makes a couple starts. He works with a pitching coach down there. Because strolling him out there is only hurting him at this point and hurting the team. He got booed off the field last night. That was uncalled for. But he answered questions. I give him credit for that. This is funny. I'm on Twitter checking up on the news for the Live Tour, and Brooks Koepka just tweeted welfare check on Brandel Chambly. Brandel Chambly's been going after Phil Mickelson. This is funny. That's a good tweet. It's a good tweet. I like that. Interesting stuff. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's I tell you, that's a shocking thing for me. That's a stunner. See that this morning from the PGA Tour and Live Tour. But yeah, Alek Manoah, AAA. Just to finish that little conversation. Little UFC news. This one's kind of a heartwarming, good story. If you're not familiar with the sport all that much, there's this fighter, Chris Weidman, former middleweight champion of the world. Very popular fighter, again, former champion, very good grappler, is a great in MMA. He, 2+ years, it was almost 3 years ago, he had his leg completely snapped when he threw a leg kick. His leg completely went out. They had to stop the fight, and he had to be rushed to the hospital, and he nearly had his leg removed. It was one of those situations. He had multiple surgeries. He's gone through rehab. And Chris Weidman somehow is returning to the octagon, returning to the UFC at UFC 292 in Boston in August. He'll be fighting Brad Tavares, another veteran of the middleweight division. But this is just a positive story. The fact that he could battle all the way back. He was in a grappling event in January. In the grappling event, he's now training again, and he's coming back for this fight. He's 38 years old, missed a couple key years of his career, but he said, I've heard him interview, he said, I'm coming back to see if I can get back to the top of the sport, get back to winning a title. Fighting Israel Adesanya. That's his ultimate goal. I think it's a big goal. It's unlikely to happen at his age. But just to see him back in the octagon will be a positive sign. His injury was worse than Conor McGregor's. This one was, again, he almost lost his leg. It was really, really serious. And for him to return, to him to have the opportunity to fight a Brad Tavares, UFC 292 is a pay-per-view that I think Dana White really likes because that's his neck of the woods, the Boston area. To get Sugar Sean O'Malley on that card, to get 2 title fights on the card, and to add Chris Weidman so far, that's a win. That's a win for the promotion. That's a win for the UFC. And I think it's a win for anybody who likes the sport because Chris Weidman's a former champion that it's just a really good day for the sport. That's how I would label it. But I'm happy for Chris. He deserves this. He deserves to have an opportunity to fight, to see if he can get back in the cage and do it again. And it's certainly, there's still some fear there because the last time I saw him fight was one of the nastiest injuries I've ever seen. Just his leg completely gave out, it snapped, and it's scary to say the least. But good for him for fighting all the way back, getting back in this position, fighting on the UFC 292 card in Boston. It's awesome for Chris Weidman because he's a veteran of the sport. Again, he's a champion. And boy, could they have used him for the card this weekend. But they're putting him in Boston. The UFC card this weekend, not exactly great. Not exactly great in Vancouver, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. I suppose we can't do that. But one fight was pulled off that card. Chris Daukaus was going to make his debut at light heavyweight. That has since been removed because he's got an injury. He's going to fight Khalil Roundtree. They had to scrap a flyweight fight between Matthew Schnell and David Dvorak. They do have a replacement, but it's not as interesting a fight. They got Chris Curtis on the preliminary card and not the main card. That's stupid. And they do have 2 Canadians on the main card, which is great. I get it. But neither fighter is ranked. It's a bottom tier card. It could be a fight night, let's be honest. But am I going to watch it? Yes, I'm complaining, but I'm still going to watch the event, of course. I have to. It's the UFC. I'm addicted to the sport, but it's a lackluster event. It's a lackluster event. And what I think I might do is because Stanley Cup Final is that night. Maybe probably order the card and just finish the game, then go back and watch the UFC later on Fight Pass, I guess. Because they're on at the same time, which is a problem, of course. Couldn't have an afternoon card that day, huh? Especially with this rainy-ass weather, as you can see behind me, which has been not so pleasant. But again, we'll see what happens from here. But interesting fights for sure coming up, and we'll talk about that more later in the week. French Open. We have a rematch on our hand, folks. Yesterday, Coco Gauff, the young American phenom, and Iga Swiatek, 2-time French Open champion, both won their respective round of 16 matches rather easily. And now they set up a match in the quarterfinal, which is a rematch of last year's final. Swiatek beat Coco Gauff in straight sets, 2 really easy sets, to win her second French Open. And now Coco Gauff said at the beginning of the tournament she wanted a rematch. She's going to get one in the quarterfinal. I'll tell you, Swiatek has been the most dominant player at this event. You could argue the last 2 years, but I'm just saying this year. Her opponent pull-out yesterday was 5-1. She double-baggled Wong in the 3rd round. She hasn't dropped a set. She's been cruising. Coco Gauff looked good, not great, but she's won her last 2 matches rather easily. By the time I podcast tomorrow, this match will likely be done. For Coco Gauff to win, her serve has to be on point. She goes a lot of second serves, and that's the kryptonite of her game, in my opinion, and the fact that she's a little loose with the forehand. But if you're going to beat Swiatek, you're going to have to play your best tennis. And I don't think we've seen that from her. We saw her last year that she played better. But the way these 2 women are going into this match, I would be stunned if Swiatek doesn't win it. Because I just think she's so confident right now. She's playing incredible tennis. She's cool, she's calm, she's collected. And on this court, she doesn't have a Rafael Nadal aura to her. But to me, this is just her best surface. It's slower. She can control the pace a little bit more than the hard court and the grass. And she's looking for her 3rd French Open. I'm looking forward to the rematch. Because I believe both these women are, Swiatek's already won a major. I think Coco Gauff will win one in her career. Because I think she's talented enough to do it. But looking ahead, I expect Swiatek to win this match, and I'm going to say she wins it in straight sets again. Coco's young. She needs to learn to get better, go through these type of moments. Swiatek's a veteran. She knows what she's doing. It's her best surface. Sasha Zverev defeated Grigor Dimitrov in straight sets yesterday, which was a surprise to me. I expected more of a battle. I expected Dimitrov just couldn't hold his serve. He didn't have it. His brain looked a little bit elsewhere. But I will say for Sasha Zverev, who blew out his ankle at the French Open a number of years ago, he's back. His legs are fully back, his cardio is there, and he's just playing with extreme confidence. He looks so cool, calm, and collected. He's not shook by anything. And it's nice to see because I think he's truly, he's ranked 22 currently. I think he's one of the best players in the game. He was ranked third in the world at this time last year. Then he got injured, so he's trying to work his way back. He's meeting Thomas Martin Etcheverry, who won in straight sets, who's in his first career Grand Slam quarterfinal. Sasha Zverev will enter the match. An extreme favorite, Holger Rune and Casper Ruud will meet in the other quarterfinal. That's an interesting one because both men have had great tournaments. Casper Ruud was in the final last year, losing to Rafael Nadal. But to me, Zverev looks locked in. I think he can beat anybody in the event, and he's got that aura about him right now, just the way he's playing. Djokovic and currently Carlos Alcaraz, Stefanos Tsitsipas will meet later this afternoon in the high-profile quarterfinal. Djokovic is down a set to Khachanov currently. They're on serve in the second set. So Khachanov has never beaten Djokovic at a major. Djokovic is 8-1 against Karen all time. So we'll see what happens the rest of the day. But Khachanov's up a set early. In the women's rounds, Karolina Mukova won in straight sets. She's through to her first career major semifinal, and she will meet Arina Sabalenka, who obviously I've talked about before here. She won the Australian Open. She's looked great in this tournament, playing with an extreme level of confidence. And Svitolina, who's from the Ukraine, did not shake her hand after the match. I don't like that. Again, labeling people is a tough go. Maybe Svitolina should take a look in the mirror. I thought that was really, I don't think it's classy. And, the person from the Ukraine will get the benefit of the doubt here, and they'll get this, people will be sympathetic to them. I didn't like that. I don't think that's a good show of class. I don't think it's respectful. But again, I'm not doing this here. I'm not the one competing, and I'm not from the Ukraine. Maybe I have a different mentality if I was. Leonard Floyd, the former Rams Super Bowl champion linebacker, has joined the Buffalo Bills. Waiting to hear news on Dalvin Cook. He could be released by the Minnesota Vikings in the next coming days. The great running back. So there could be some NFL news as well in the next couple days to talk about. But no NFL, no NHL tonight, no NBA tonight. Be following the tennis this afternoon. We'll watch some baseball tonight, Ultimate Fighter. Also going to talk about the CFL later in the week. Season preview might be on the way. Season starts Thursday night, and I like the CFL. I'm glad it's back. Get some football back in our lives. So that will be discussed later in the week. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, folks. Enjoy the rain. Talk to you tomorrow right here on To The Point.